This is Yannick of 961 Minutes. Today, in today's tutorial, we'll be looking at Lightroom and more specifically the histogram and how we can use it to properly expose an image that is dull or underexposed or maybe overexposed. To follow this tutorial, all you'll need is to know how to import a photo into Lightroom, which is pretty easy. We'll cover that in another video if we can, but it's a very simple step. So let's get started. The histogram is this thing you see on the right hand side of Lightroom. It's a little bit intimidating at first, but it's actually very simple to use. The histogram is a way to visualize how your photo is exposed and what colors you'll find in your photo. To the left hand side, it represents the blacks and the shadows, and to the right hand sides you see all the highlights and the white colors in your photo. So this is the picture we'll be using today, and we see that at first it was looking very dull and it wasn't properly exposed. The stuff that is supposed to be white is actually gray, which is a problem. And we'll put some life back into it using the histogram as a reference. So let's get started. Okay, let me reset the photo. Okay. So right now the histogram tells us that there is no white in a picture, and we want to fill this gap, moving our colors to the lighter side, which is the right hand side. You could be using your mouse to actually pull your histogram and tell it that you want some lighter colors in it, but I find that it's not the best way to do it. You'll get way more control using the sliders, in my opinion. Okay, so the first thing you want to do to fill this gap is to push your exposure up. So we'll move this slider to the right hand side, maybe set it at 120. So we see that our histogram moved to the right hand side, but there's still a little bit of a gap here, meaning that what's supposed to be white isn't quite white yet. The next thing you want to do, and that's our main focus today, is the white slider or the black slider. If you pull the white slider, it's actually going to tell Lightroom that you want the light colors to be even whiter. And you can see here that it's spreading our histogram to the right hand side. And you want to be careful with the slider, because as soon as your peak touches the edge of the histogram, that means that you're losing details. It basically means that all the stuff that is touching the edge here is all white, meaning no detail. And you can click on this triangle here to see the area that is being affected. So if I push it to the right hand side, and okay, and now we see that everything in this area is pure white, meaning that there's nothing else in white, which means no details. So that's a problem. That's something you want to avoid. It means you overdid it a little bit. So we're gonna lower this a little bit, like so. Okay, and you can see here that it's not touching, so that's pretty good. Now, because we've pushed our exposure a little bit, that means that even our blacks move to the right hand side, meaning that our blacks or shadows became more gray or lighter. And I want to correct that quickly. So I'll use the black slider and push it to the left. And you can see that the darker colors are becoming more intense. They are becoming darker. Again, here you don't want it to touch the edge of your histogram too much. So we'll push it to this much. Okay, and you can see that I'm losing a little bit of detail because it's touching the edge of my histogram. But if I click on the triangle here, I can see the shadows that are being affected by that loss of details. And I'm fine with this. It's not too big a deal. Okay, so if we want to maybe make our picture a little bit better now, we can also push the colors a little bit, but that's not in the scope of this tutorial. But let's do it quickly. So I'm gonna push the vibrance a little bit, meaning that the colors that are dull at the moment will become more saturated. Okay, and maybe if you want, you can also play around with the orange slider. In this case, because our cookies are orange, have a lot of orange, we can tell Lightroom that we want the oranges to be a little bit more saturated. Okay, that's all done in the HSL panel. Okay, so now we can look at the before and after, and in about 2 minutes we corrected this picture very quickly using our histogram to make sure that we properly exposed it, and that our blacks and whites aren't burnt, if you will. Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.